It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. I'm so happy you tuned in today. Uncle Chuck is going to be with me in just a minute. We're going to talk some, what do we talk about here? Maybe some pop culture kind of stuff to start out the day. And then I want to get to a couple of news stories. A little Bernie news, because, Bernie's my guy. Chucky Bucky, the other half of the team, Chucky and Uncle Chuck, here both today, not together, but both here. And then before the hour is out, want to make sure we have some time for this. The shocking paper predicting the end of democracy. Psychologists got together, and one of the big mucky mucks, a highly respected doctor in the profession, is predicting the end of democracy because psychology. I rant against that, using a noun after because. Advertisers do it. Because sandwich. You've heard this, I rail against it. I'm okay with the natural evolution of language. I know that happens. Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm not a what they call a grammar Nazi or anything like that. Yeah, language evolves. But this is not a natural evolution. These are advertisers trying to be cute, and they're infecting the language when you put a noun after because. Because, language. No. That's advertisers started that, and other people pick up on it. The other thing advertisers did, I think was it Apple or IBM? I forget. It was one of the two big ones, who said, think different instead of think differently. So it's grammatically incorrect, but it's kind of cool, right? Think different. Okay, so that's all right. But other people started doing it. And now I've seen several advertisers. One was even a college. Oh, boy, I can't remember. Somebody right here in my neighborhood, a university, in their promotions did a very similar thing. They made their slogan was grammatically incorrect, in the style of think different. It's bad enough that other people pick up on this, but I thought when a university does it, now all is lost. All right, so let's see. A couple quick things before we start. A couple of programming notes. As I mentioned in earlier shows, and I want to remind you right now, this podcast is now available on your favorite platform. It's on a whole bunch of different podcast platforms. We have a new host site. It's called Libsyn, Libsyn. If you want to find us there, libsyn.com/Charles Purcell. But the news there, and the nice thing about that is now Libsyn, as our host site, automatically shoots the show off to many different platforms. So now it's so much easier than it was before. You can subscribe easily at Apple Podcasts or at iHeart. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. So take advantage of that. You can download, you can subscribe. Everything is so much better and so much easier. And of course, all the other podcasts in the family, as I often mention, Scenes from a Perfect World, The Information Age, Neo Radio, and my personal favorite, Stream of Consciousness Talk Radio Theater. Here's one other quick reminder before we get into the meat of things. We've talked a lot about climate change the last couple of weeks, and we will continue to do that. It's the single most important story that I believe everyone should be talking about all the time. All I want to say right now, for the moment, is September 20th. I want you to mark that date on your calendar. Students plan a worldwide climate strike on September 20. It's time for adults to join the fight. I couldn't agree more. That's a Daily Kos headline. You can find the information all over. Just search September 20, climate strike. Search it for in your area. I don't have the, I should, boy, you know what? Why don't I do that right now? I'm going to, as a service to you, let's see, climate strike September 20th. Oh, look, it even finished it for me. Pretty good. That means it's out there. Let's put in Milwaukee for my local spot here. So wherever you're listening, Climate Strike, September 20, and then your city. And as I'm doing right now, Milwaukee Climate Strike, September 20. So you get right to it. 200 East Wells Street, Milwaukee. So there you go. It couldn't be easier to get the information. September 20, it's a Friday. You need to call in sick or just not show up, or go ahead and tell your boss, I won't be in today because I'll be at the Climate Strike. And encourage your boss to do the same and all your coworkers to do the same. We can't ever be cynical. We can't ever begin to think that filling the streets does not work. It does. We just have to do it consistently, and we have to do it in great numbers. That's maybe the one and only thing I'm going to agree with Agent Orange about. The size of a crowd matters. So we need big crowds on September 20, and then continue. All right, let's talk a little culture, shall we? And whenever we talk culture, I like to bring in my favorite cultural critic, Uncle Chuck. Well, hello there, Charles Purcell. Hey, Uncle Chuck. Well, you and I are going to do the September 20 together, right? We're going to be out there marching. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be there. So watch for us. Say hello if you see us. We'll be out there. You going to make a sign, Charles Purcell? Yeah, I almost never make a sign. I kind of add my body to the numbers, and I feel like that's important. Maybe I should make a sign. Well, sure. It's fun to make a sign. Yeah. Be creative, I suppose. You and your money thing, you could do a, profit is evil or something like that. You could do a money thing. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, okay. Sure it is. It's a great idea.
Okay, Mr. Cultural Critic, while we got you here,
yeah,
I want to get your opinion on something. It's a really popular, dumb kind of story that we see in our social feed, and that's about swearing. Oh, swearing and cursing, yes. Okay, so you want my opinion on this? Yeah, I'll give you one specific. The F word is going the way of hell.
Oh.
That's the headline from something I caught my eye this week.
Okay.
In today's world, slurs are the real profanity, not the use of an F-bomb to describe a mass shooting. And it came about because presidential candidate and former Congressman Beto O'Rourke dropped the F-bomb several times when talking about recent shootings, especially, El Paso, where he's from.
Yes.
Again, he dropped the F-bomb a couple of times, and this has gone on to be at least the launching pad here for this article about how the F word, and we'll use it that because FCC is listening.
Oh, they're listening.
Hell. What the hell? A certain number of years ago, that was taboo.
Yes.
That was shocking to say what the hell. Well, what the hell? Exactly right. What the hell?
Yeah.
And now it's what the f***. Yes. Are you okay with that? I guess my question? Oh, I suppose. You mentioned earlier how language evolves.
Yeah.
Here's my thought on it. I'm not necessarily offended, but sometimes, here, put it this way. I have a great respect for language. Language is the most wonderful thing. It really is. It's a beautiful thing, and the F word is one of the most beautiful words in the English language because of its power. Now, if it becomes ubiquitous, if it just becomes as common as what the hell, if what the F becomes as common as what the hell, well, that's going to be very disappointing to me because then the F word will lose its power. And as I say, it's a beautiful, powerful word. And when it's dropped in the right moment, it's one of the most effective words in the English language, one of the most impactful words. So that's my feeling. I really do get quite offended, not in a church lady kind of way, but just as someone who loves the language, I get offended when somebody's dropping the F-bomb here and the F-bomb there, and every word is effing this and effing that. You're taking a beautiful thing and you're abusing it to the point where then it's no longer going to be beautiful. You're taking away its beauty and its power. So I absolutely adore the F word. It's the greatest word in the English language, but it won't be if people keep just dropping it wherever they want to.
You see?
You know what? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And to be a little bit provincial, I'll be in bars and restaurants, bar/restaurants where there are young people, where there are children with their parents eating dinner.
Yes.
And people around them, surrounding them, are F this, F that, F and this, F and that. And I do have some sympathy for people, and especially parents, who still find it offensive in kind of the old-fashioned way, that it's a bad word or a naughty word. Yes, okay, yeah, I can see that. We don't think it's a bad word or a naughty word. But yeah, I think parents have the right to make that decision for their kids. We don't necessarily agree, but we still recognize the right. So yeah, to drop it, the F openly, over and over in public spaces where everybody can hear you loud and clear. Yeah, I think that's rude for kind of old-fashioned reasons.
Yeah.
But mostly my big concern is that it takes the greatest word in the English language and it denigrates it, and it lowers it to a status of just an obnoxious word. And then one other thing that's kind of related to that, not just the F word, but any of the basic curse words that George Carlin told us about, you can't say on TV, and the FCC warned us about.
Right.
There's only a half a dozen words, for gosh sakes, and people who use them often, I think, are lazy speakers. And again, I'm offended not for the old-fashioned reasons. I'm offended on the basis of, well, can't we be better than this? As a people, as a society, can't we use language a little more creatively?
Oh, okay, I see.
So just generally speaking, I don't like to hear people curse because I find it to be terribly lazy. Okay, I can see that. And that brings me to another, and this is to the point of just being ridiculous. We see these all the time. Here's one headline: people who swear often are honest and have the qualities to make a good friend. And you'll see this headline all the time. People who swear are this, people who swear are that, people who use the F word are this or that. And it's always, they're better, they're smarter, they're better friends. We see this all the time.
Yes.
I don't know where they're getting their research, but it's one of the most popular headlines you'll see in your social feed. Oh, yes, I've seen it many, many times. Of course, I know just what you're saying. People who swear are this or that. They're kinder, they're smarter, they're better, they're more intelligent, they're more handsome, they're more beautiful.
Yeah.
Swearing is just the most beautiful, wonderful thing you could do. It's just ridiculous. It's just clickbait. And yes, my bottom line is if I hear someone in my circle is just swearing an awful lot, it's just really they're just bag-a-boom out of their mouth. I have less respect for them. I don't know if they're more intelligent or they're kinder or what they are, but I know one thing about them. They're lazy speakers. The English language, well, not just any language you want to be speaking, has so many wonderful opportunities.
Yeah.
If you're a reader and a listener and a talker and
Okay.
we all use language. Use it well. Why not? Shouldn't we do everything we do? We should try to do well.
Sure.
And so, that's my bottom line. People who swear a lot, I'm not offended. You're not going to hell. I just think you're a lazy speaker.
Okay.
And I have less respect for you. You sound less thoughtful, less educated, less intelligent.
Yeah.
Because you're a lazy speaker. So I'm not a fan of cursing. And again, with the F word, which I've called a beautiful, impactful word, it is. And that kind of goes for the others too. Drop them appropriately, and now you've got some impact. Now you've got some punch to your language.
Yeah.
But if you're just swearing all the time, and then you'll use these dopey little articles on your social feed to justify that. Look, I'm smart, and I'm a good friend because I swear a lot. Oh, no. You're just falling prey to silliness. That's just silliness, Charles Purcell. All right. Well, thanks, Uncle Chuck. It's great to have you. Well, sure, anytime you need me to come in and set things straight, I'll do it for you. Thanks, Uncle Chuck. All right. Thanks, Charles Purcell.
There he is.
Uncle Chuck.
Ain't it a shame that you can't say it's just a word and it's all up like a up punk with a up mouth. The 9-inch nail will get knocked the fuck out. Up dreams, up life, up kid with a up knife. Up moms, up dad, up cop with a up badge. Up job, up pay, up boss is a up day. Up dreams, up life, up kid with a up knife.
It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Chucky Bucky coming up in here just a few minutes with some thoughts on some LGBTQ issues. And going to close the program today with the end of democracy. That's the prediction by a prominent psychologist. That's going to be fun. But right now, just a couple of little Bernie updates. It's the Bernie Update.
Bernie Update.
Bernie's my guy. I love Bernie. We all know I love Bernie. So just a couple quick updates here. We talked in the last couple of weeks about his plan for the climate crisis. Yeah, go to his website. He's got this all laid out. It's the most ambitious plan of any candidate. What else did we... Oh, he also had a plan for media reform, for journalism in America, we talked about. And it's all on his website. So this week's little Bernie update, Bernie Sanders unveils plan to cancel all $1.6 trillion of student loan debt. This is from CNN. Bernie Sanders offered up a plan on Monday to completely eliminate the student loan debt of every American, staking out uncharted territory in the Democratic presidential primary. That's Bernie's thing, uncharted territory. Everything they're talking about now, free tuition, universal health care, he was the only one talking about it last election cycle. He charts uncharted territory. The new legislation would cancel $1.6 trillion of student loan undergraduate and graduate debt for approximately 45 million people, and I'm one of them. His ambitious plan has no eligibility limitations and would be paid for with a new tax on Wall Street speculation. Oh my God, so simple, so easy. He just got answers. I'm not being, did that sound sarcastic? I didn't mean it to be. I gotta make sure I'm clear. No, I'm quite serious. These are very simple solutions. Bernie's got them. The proposal goes further than the plan previously unveiled by his Democratic primary rival, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Her debt relief package was subject to income eligibility levels to determine how much relief the average person would receive. Under the Sanders plan, if you have student debt of any kind, it would be canceled the second the legislation is signed into law. Oh, we got this within our reach, you guys. We can have this. You know, over the years, I've changed my view on this whole eligibility thing. I used to be a firm believer that Social Security should be means tested, is the phrase they used to use. In other words, if rich people shouldn't be getting Social Security. Jeff Bezos shouldn't be getting his Social Security check. And I was as sure of that as I could be as sure of anything. But then, believe it or not, new information caused me to change my mind. Yes, people can do it. Yes, they can. I held that opinion firmly for many, many years. Nothing was going to shake it until I actually saw the evidence that it's more trouble than it's worth to do means testing. Just go ahead and give it to everybody, and it all comes out in the wash when people are taxed and etc. And it's all fine. To means test Social Security would have been just a horrible, convoluted, complicated, expensive process that wouldn't have done anybody any good, and it wouldn't have saved anybody any money. It would have cost money. So I am against means testing. And I think it's probably the same thing here. In one swoop, just cancel the debt. It'll all wash out in the end. Nobody's getting away with anything. Oh, look, the rich kid doesn't have to pay back his student loans. Who cares? That is so petty. That is so petty to make that argument. So I just wanted to jump in with that little Bernie update. And then to throw a little water on Bernie. I mentioned last week how I do differ with Bernie in that he's not far left enough for me. When you look at the political spectrum and you put it on a worldwide scale, Bernie's just a little bit kind of center left is all he is. There's a whole spectrum to the left that Bernie is not. You know, you look at the possibilities of what could be. So I came across this article, and I just wanted to share it with you. Maybe I won't get into it too deeply, but I just wanted to point you to it. It's from The Atlantic, and it's written by Annie Lowry, a staff writer at The Atlantic. And the headline is, "The People Who Think Bernie is Moderate." Subheadline, "To socialist candidates, even the leftmost Democrat isn't left enough." So this was kind of on my mind. We talked about it last week, and then I came across this article, and I thought, you know what? I want to share it with you guys. Let me read just a little bit. Senator Elizabeth Warren wants new taxes on wealth. Senator Bernie Sanders wants Medicare for all. Senator Cory Booker wants guaranteed jobs. Jeff Mackler wants the elimination of the military budget, the nationalization of the energy and banking industries, open borders, the creation of a state-run healthcare system, and the end of capitalism in the United States. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. A member of the Trotskyist Party, Socialist Action, Mackler is one of a handful of true, full-fat, no-joke socialist candidates running or considering running for president in 2020. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell looks at the Democratic primary and sees the proposed cubification of the country. Mackler looks at it and sees neoliberal accommodationism. Quote, Bernie gets a little attention when he says things like, 3 people in the United States control half the wealth in the country, he told me with a chuckle. He has no proposal to change that in any way. Between McConnell and Mackler, the latter probably has the better argument. Historians and political scientists and socialists themselves make the point that although the left has moved to the left, there is still a lot of left to the left. Good, right? I like that. That's clever. Progressives have become more progressive and Nordic model policies more popular. Membership in the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, has boomed, but socialism, real socialism, meaning worker collectives and the nationalization of critical industries and the end of the free enterprise model, in the presidential race, nobody is even talking about it. Well, and that's exactly why I entered the race. I entered the race. I announced my candidacy for president, and then I didn't really follow up on that. I guess I should get on that. I made the announcement, then I got on to other things. Yes, I, Charles Purcell, am running for president of the United States. So, Jeff Mackler might or might not be running as a full-blown socialist, and I am running, of course, as well. Now, I often put myself even to the left of socialists because I want to eliminate money entirely. See, a socialist still keeps money as the fuel that runs the engine of the economy. It's just that the government controls it or workers control it, but it's all about who controls it. And to me, that's much better than what we have now. Don't get me wrong. It's 1,000 times, it's 1,000,000 times better than what we have now. But the danger remains that money is still equated with power. It upholds that role of money. Now, a socialist just wants to distribute the power where it belongs, to the people, to the workers, and that's good. But the fact is, money remains power. It remains in that role. And as long as it does, there will be people trying to get it. Under a Charles Purcell presidency, the very idea, the very concept of money no longer exists. All products, all services, all resources that we get from the earth, everything now that money pays for will be gotten through cooperation and through organization and through democracy. But I say, God bless Bernie, let's take a step. And then I say, God bless Jeff Mackler, a full-blown socialist, and I've got many socialist friends. But I'm running for president to take us to the step that needs to be taken. Anyway, so, we were talking about that last week, how Bernie is a centrist when you put him on the global scale. And then one last thought on this before I leave. It's worthy of mention. I don't remember if I've talked about this before. Here's another place where I've changed over the years, where I saw new evidence and I did further research, and new evidence made me change my mind. Yes, I'm here to tell you it can happen. I used to be a big, as they call it in this article, Nordic model fan. Norway and Sweden and Denmark, places like that. That was the model. That was so great. It was still basically a capitalist system, but the democratic socialists had it reined in. People worked and they had their health care and they had all the happy little memes you see from Scandinavia about how their health care is free, their education is free. Yes, all great, all wonderful. And for many, many, many years, I was all about that. Why can't we be like Sweden?
First step over the condition piece.
Now, very much in line with my love and criticism of Bernie, my love and criticism of the so-called Nordic model is that A, it still keeps money in that power position, which we've already discussed. But the other big thing is, I don't know how I missed this over the years, but I finally started to realize, well, wait a minute. The really successful countries in Scandinavia and in Europe, they're still Western countries aligned with the United States, and as such are the rich of the world. You know, like Bernie talks about the three people who own more than half of the rest of their fellow Americans. Well, we and the Scandinavians and Europe, the countries who are really doing well, we are the handful of rich nations who only hold our position because the rest of the world suffers. There are poor nations that we exploit. We steal their resources. We steal their labor. We're the bad guys in this picture. So this is not the ultimate solution to become like Sweden. If you all vote for Bernie in 2020, well, that's a pretty good step. I think the next step is full-blown socialism, which actually we might be able to just skip. Because here's a possible scenario I see. We go all out Nordic model democratic socialism, and the money is being distributed by law. Okay, so you're going to be taxed this much, and we're going to give it to them who need it for that, and then this investment for that, and the jobs over here, and healthcare over there, and education over there, and all these balls being juggled, right? All these tectonic plates being shifted around and manipulated through the force of law. At some point, even if that's generally successful, I think we're going to look at it and see, well, why do we even have this money in the first place? We have to have these 1,000-page laws that determine where it's going to go to even things out. Why don't we just eliminate the middleman? Just get rid of it. Get rid of money entirely, and then we don't need all of these ridiculous, complex, convoluted, high-maintenance laws and regulations. We're just going to see that it's ridiculous. Any kind of innovation we need, any kind of products and services that need to be provided, the idea that you prop up this artificial idea of money in order to lubricate these wheels is just an illusion. The money was never needed in the first place. We're finally going to see, with time and with evidence, that money itself is not only unnecessary, it's been gumming up the works for centuries. And if and when we can get a handle on it through socialism, that's going to make it more clear than ever. Okay, we've got a handle on it, but it takes this enormous power of the state to control and regulate it. And we reach a point of equity, of equality, where we have the proverbial fair playing field. That's going to then show us that we don't need the money. Income distribution is now so fair that we've reached a completely equal playing field. And the kid in the poor neighborhood, well, it used to be a poor neighborhood, now has the exact same opportunities as the kid that used to be in a rich suburb, because we somehow shifted all these great sums around. Okay, we see how now the world works with an even playing field. Great. And that's proof that we never needed the money in the first place. So take all the money away, and we cooperate, and we live in a small d democracy, and we got it, baby. All we need is democracy. It's the law.
Yes, it is. Okay.
I'm Charles Purcell.
Yep, that's him.
And with me, Chucky
Hey,
Bucky.
Charles Purcell.
Well, hello, Chucky Bucky. How are you?
Hey there, hi there, ho there.
Good to see you.
So what's up there, Charles Purcell?
Well, I tell you what, just a quick segment. We don't have too much time, but I wanted to get your opinion on a couple of things. You are our resident expert on.
Well, geez, I'm not an expert on anything. What are you talking about?
Well, you are.
Oh, okay. All right, I get it.
Well, you have opinions about LGBTQ issues.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
I know that's something that you're passionate about, especially when it comes to the church. You're a recovering Catholic, as they say.
Oh, yeah, okay, you got me on there. Sure, yeah, that's something. So you wanted my opinion. Yeah, you sent me a couple of articles and I read them.
Oh, good.
So I guess you want to talk about this guy, right? This conversion therapy guy?
Yeah, that's why I called you in.
Okay, then.
Man who ran conversion therapy to give people freedom from homosexuality, quote unquote, comes out as gay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, just read a little bit of
let me just read a little bit of this to get us started. The founder of one of America's largest homosexual conversion therapy programs has called the practice harmful and come out as gay. McCrae Game is the guy's name. Spent more than 20 years promising to give clients freedom from homosexuality at his Hope for Wholeness centers, where the widely discredited practice designed to suppress or change a person's sexuality through counseling or religion was carried out. It is currently banned in 18 American states. So,
Well, I
don't know. What do we want to say about this?
I mean,
So there you go. And yes, I know why you brought me on, Charles Purcell.
well,
I know. You can't fool me. You're going to get me to say things that you don't want to say out loud yourself.
well,
I know your game.
all right.
Okay, I'll play that game.
All right.
Sure. Yeah. This is not a surprise. The research, by the way, did you give the information for that?
Oh, thank you. No, I didn't. It was The Independent, if you want to read that article. Colin Drury is the writer. Independent.co.uk. I'll link it as always.
Good. Okay, so this guy, McCrae Game, comes out as gay, and all the research is consistent. There is a consensus out there. There's no getting around it. Look it up. Just search it, and you'll see that the most homophobic and the most vocal enemies to LGBTQRLMNOP.
what are you doing?
I'm sorry. Anyway, the most vocal critics, there's a great research that shows that these people are afraid of their own sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
That it's deep-seated, and it's this, these poor people. And I'm not here to make jokes about them or to condemn them. I genuinely feel sorry for them. That's all that I want to convey today. I genuinely feel sorry for them. We've seen it time and time again. People in government, making these kind of terrible discriminatory laws, and they just, they make homophobia like their calling card. It's like what they do.
It's their thing.
And and you just look at them, and every a couple times every year at least, one of them comes out again as, I was gay the whole time, and I couldn't admit it, or I was hiding it from others and hiding it from myself. And again, I have no interest in scoring any political points with these guys. I just genuinely feel sorry for them, and I think it's tragic that this homophobia, which springs from their own latent homosexuality, it's so sad and tragic for all of us. And then you get these terrible laws that allow, what did you say, 18 states?
Yeah, 18 states.
18 states in America have banned conversion therapy?
Right.
That means that, what's 50 minus 18, Charles Purcell?
30.
Help me with
32.
my math here. 50 minus, let's see, 50 would be 30.
It's 32.
32 states still allow this garbage? That is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And like I say, these guys. So here's another one, and it's not surprising. And again, it's I don't want to be making any jokes or scoring any points, but I'm just sad. These guys who do this, and again, politicians.
Well, of course, and now you say politicians. The first name that comes to mind is Mike Pence.
Oh, sure.
This has been central to his political career, and of course, he was a conservative radio host for many years, and this has been central to his mission. This whole kind of anti-gay religious liberty stuff, and he's been accused of supporting gay conversion therapy.
Well, that's right. He did act. It's a little kind of a mixed bag here.
Well,
he never said right out loud that he supported the use of gay conversion therapy. He was careful not to come out and say it, but he did support the use of federal funding to treat people. I'm reading here right here. I clicked this up on my phone because I knew you'd ask about it.
Okay.
This is from Snopes. And don't be calling, you gotta, it's just basic information here. Don't be criticizing Snopes and say, oh, they don't know. It's just very basic here.
Snopes is good.
Okay. They tell you, they're the ones who tell you he didn't really come right out and say it out loud. I think he was being kind of careful. But what's true about it is Mike Pence once supported the use of federal funding to treat people, quote, seeking to change their sexual behavior. So, yeah, basically, he supported gay conversion therapy in a kind of political, careful kind of way, but it's pretty clear.
And his position is
that,
clear and obvious.
That he did. And,
well, now getting back to what you were talking about earlier, these closeted, self-loathing gay men who we feel nothing but sympathy and empathy for, do you include Mike Pence in that?
well, see, now here's the thing. Yes, absolutely. I think it's kind of obvious. You and I both, Charles Purcell, have I know you and I share this history. There have been lots of times in my life when I'm the only straight guy in the room, in the whole community. I've lived in gay communities and lived and worked in.
Yeah, I have too, actually. Yeah, I lived in San Francisco for many years. I was in the theater community. There were often I was just kind of seeped in gay culture all the time for years and years. And there will often be the times that I'm the only straight guy there.
Now, that's not to say we got to be very. Oh my God, we always got to be so careful.
Yeah, we do.
You can't say, "Oh, I'm not a bigot. I'm not
no.
a bigot because I have gay friends." That's not what we're saying.
No.
We're saying that we really lived it, and we not only just have gay friends, but we've kind of been part of the community.
Yeah, I felt that way.
And
yeah,
geez, is it a terrible thing to say? I'm going to say it out loud and let the chips fall where they may. I know a gay guy when I see one. Not that I can tell I can't tell if a person's gay just by looking at him. But some people, you can. Okay? So I'm not like 100%, but there are some people that are just unmistakably gay. And to me, Mike Pence is just unmistakably gay. It's so obvious to me.
yeah,
I mean, just look at the guy.
yeah.
And then his whole crazy religious thing and his anti-gay thing and the whole thing with this very odd rules of his marriage. He's just, I don't know. Is it terrible that I said that out loud?
Yeah, it probably is. We're probably getting ourselves in all sorts of trouble.
Right?
Billy Eichner came out. Do you remember this a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Billy Eichner?
Sure.
Billy on the Street. He's an actor, comedian.
Yeah, Billy Eichner.
Excuse me, I'm clicking this up right now. I remember, when was that? A couple of years ago. Yeah, here it is. February 7th, 2017. Billy Eichner, Mike Pence is a closeted gay man. Tweet. It's just a tweet. And here it is. Pence is a closeted gay man who turned his self-loathing into a political agenda to punish the part of himself he hates most. I'm with you, Chucky Bucky. I just feel nothing but sadness.
Right?
And then
Yeah.
a following tweet a little while later, about a month later, just simply, Mike Pence is gay. That's a Billy Eichner tweet.
I don't know. I think it's just so obvious that how anybody, and I have Googled it. I've looked up, and outside of this Billy Eichner thing and maybe one or two little, there's like nothing. You think it would be a subject of conversation, but, the whole issue of whether or not to out somebody, that's a very strong thing. And most people say no, outing is a bad thing. Some people still say outing is a good thing.
Yeah, some do.
But when it comes to somebody with this kind of power, and he does have power, let's be honest about it.
Sure.
And he's so anti-gay. He just wants to, it's really terrible, his positions, and he's in a position of power to make laws.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
So in that case, I think you gotta say what you believe. And to me, it's just so obvious that he's gay. So there's that. Was that helpful at all? Did I do what
you caught me.
Yeah.
I needed you to say things that I was afraid to say.
I thought so.
You know what?
That's what I was thinking.
I completely confess.
Then. All right, Charles
Chucky Bucky.
Rousseau.
So thanks for that.
All right, so have me back again. We'll talk about Lindsey Graham next.
Right? Oh, you know about him.
No, don't get me started there.
Oh, Lindsey Graham. Of course, everybody knows he's gay. And again, you can't, these poor people who have to be closeted. And again, like you said, I don't get back into it. Like you said, coming out is a personal thing that people should do on their own, and they shouldn't be outed. But I think when you're in a position of authority, of great power, maybe you surrender some of that personal
I don't know.
privilege.
Maybe.
When you make yourself a public person and you're writing laws that affect the nation and the world, maybe you surrender some of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, of course, Lindsey Graham is gay. We all know it. Everybody in Washington knows it. But nobody talks about it. And
No, of course not.
I think it's more important that he's a fascist.
Well, no, he's not a fascist.
Well, I saw an article. He was pictured with this Dutch guy, this Dutch fascist.
Oh.
He was at a party and they did a selfie all smiling.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, so yeah, Lindsey Graham, we got to keep an eye on that guy too. So anyway, is that it, Charles Purcell? You done with me?
Yeah, thank you. Chucky Bucky, there he goes.
Okay then.
Thanks, Chucky.
See you there.
Chucky Bucky.
Girls love girls.
It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Headline: The shocking paper predicting the end of democracy. Human brains aren't built for self-rule, says Sean Rosenberg. I'm reading an article from Politico here by Rick Schenkman. Everything was unfolding as it usually does. The academics who gathered in Lisbon this summer for the International Society of Political Psychologists annual meeting had been politely listening for 4 days, nodding along as their peers took to the podium and delivered papers on everything from the explosion in conspiracy theories to the rise of authoritarianism. Then the mood changed as one of the lions of the profession, 68-year-old Sean Rosenberg, began delivering his paper. People in the crowd of about 100 started shifting in their seats. They loudly whispered objections to their friends. What caused the stir? Rosenberg, a professor at UC Irvine, was challenging a core assumption about America and the West. His theory? Democracy is devouring itself, his phrase, and it won't last. As much as President Donald Trump's liberal critics might want to lay America's ills at his door, Rosenberg says the president is not the cause of democracy's fall, even if his successful anti-immigrant populist campaign may have been a symptom of democracy's decline. We're to blame, said Rosenberg, as in we the people. Democracy is hard work, and as society's elites, experts, and public figures who help those around them navigate the heavy responsibilities that come with self-rule, as they have increasingly been sidelined, citizens have proved ill-equipped, cognitively and emotionally, to run a well-functioning democracy. As a consequence, the center has collapsed, and millions of frustrated and angst-filled voters have turned in desperation to right-wing populists. His prediction? In well-established democracies like the United States, democratic governance will continue its inexorable decline and will eventually fail. The last half of the 20th century was the golden age of democracy. In 1945, according to one survey, there were just 12 democracies in the entire world. By the end of the century, there were 87. But then came the great reversal. In the second decade of the 21st century, the shift to democracy rather suddenly and ominously stopped and reversed. Right-wing populist politicians have taken power, or threatened to, in Poland, Hungary, France, Britain, Italy, Brazil, and the United States. As Rosenberg notes, by some metrics, the right-wing populist share of the popular vote in Europe overall has more than tripled from 4% in 1998 to approximately 13% in 2018. A brief 3 decades after some had heralded the end of history, it's possible that it's democracy that's nearing the end. And it's not just populist rabble-rousers who are saying this. So is one of the establishment's pioneer social scientists, who's daring to actually predict the end of democracy as we know it. His theory is that over the next few decades, the number of large Western-style democracies around the globe will continue to shrink, and those that remain will become shells of themselves. Taking democracy's place, Rosenberg says, will be right-wing populist governments that offer voters simple answers to complicated questions. And therein lies the core of his argument. Democracy is hard work and requires a lot from those who participate in it. It requires people to respect those with different views from theirs and people who don't look like them. It asks citizens to be able to sift through large amounts of information and process the good from the bad, the true from the false. It requires thoughtfulness, discipline, and logic. Unfortunately, evolution did not favor the exercise of these qualities in the context of a modern mass democracy. Citing reams of psychological research, findings that by now have become more or less familiar, Rosenberg makes his case that human beings don't think straight. Biases of various kinds skew our brains at the most fundamental level. For example, racism is easily triggered unconsciously in whites by a picture of a black man wearing a hoodie. We discount evidence when it doesn't square up with our goals, while we embrace information that confirms our biases. Sometimes hearing we're wrong makes us double down, and so on and so forth. Our brains, says Rosenberg, are proving fatal to modern democracy. Humans just aren't built for it. Nowhere in this article does it occur to the good doctor that capitalism might be the problem. It doesn't occur to him. He's in a default position, which whenever you read anything like this, or anything in general, or when you have conversations with your friends at the bar or your family around the kitchen table, you're going to find 99 times out of 100 that everyone's operating from the same default position, that American-style capitalism is a given, and everything else falls under that umbrella. But once you question that premise, once you take an alternate default position, it all appears pretty bogus. Democracy is hard work and requires a lot from those who participate in it. It doesn't have to be that hard. If we lived in a world that honored people equally, if we lived in a world where each individual could follow their own dreams and potential, could contribute to the world in the best way they see fit, and to the best of their abilities, and to the best of their talents and skills, and to the best of their passions, democracy actually could be pretty easy. If money wasn't the central organizing force of our lives, then the competition for that money and for those jobs would be eliminated. And then the fear of other people, the fear of immigrants, the fear of others would be largely eliminated. So if Rosenberg is saying our brains just aren't equipped to do it, he's saying our brains are not equipped to handle the rules under which we live. That's not a condemnation of our brains. That's a condemnation of the system under which we live. He mentions the end of history. If you don't know what he's referencing here, Francis Fukuyama was a big think tank guy. He worked for a few different presidents, I believe, and he wrote an op-ed that just shook the world back in the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. That's his phrase, the end of history. And basically he said that we won. We meaning American capitalism, American neoliberal capitalism as it exists currently, at least as it existed when he was writing, was the winner. And by end of history, he meant that that struggle was now over. Communism, socialism, that's all gone now. And that's what he meant by the end of history. But let me reread this paragraph here, what Rosenberg thinks. A brief 3 decades after some had heralded the end of history, it's possible that it's democracy that's nearing the end. Well, here is a huge mistake on Rosenberg's part, and the author of this article as well. And again, it gets back to our default positions. Francis Fukuyama and Dr. Rosenberg and the author of this article all seem to think that democracy is inextricably tied to Western neoliberal capitalism. Anybody who's taken a basic 101 course in political theory knows that capitalism is not reliant on democracy and can, in fact, and as we've seen over the last few decades, extricate itself from democracy. You'll also learn in that basic undergraduate 101 course that socialism and democracy are perfectly compatible given the right template. So the so-called end of history wasn't the victory of democracy over authoritarianism. No. It was the victory, so-called, of capitalism over socialism. The fact that we have a rebirth of authoritarianism is not the result of our feeble brains. It's a result of world corporate capitalism. Much, dare I say, all of the fear we have of immigrants is not because our brains work that way. It's because somehow opportunistic tyrant politicians have convinced natives that immigrants are out to steal their jobs and kill their children and rape their daughters. Our brains are fine. If we can't figure out a way to make neoliberal capitalism work, it's because it doesn't work. Our fruitless efforts to make that square peg fit into that round hole are just making us crazy. He's equating democracy with Western corporate capitalism. That's the problem. The plain and simple evidence before us is that money-centric, commerce-driven, corporate capitalist authoritarianism does not work. So the whole notion of political psychology, which these guys are all about, I have some pretty serious questions about that and some very big doubts. I've had occasion to talk with some psychologists in my life, as both a journalist and as a patient, and I find that psychologists, just like everyone else, have a default position when it comes to the system we live under, and then everything else draws from that. You can't question that default position with a psychologist. And I know this from experience. They're going to look at you like you've got 3 heads, or they're going to very quickly say, well, this is the world we live in, and I'm here to help you cope with the world we live in. No, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to cope in the world I live in. I'm questioning your premise, a premise you're not even conscious of. Try to have that conversation with a psychologist. You're not going to get very far. And I don't want to dismiss a whole field, but we have to be very careful with psychology. I put psychology and economics into the same strata. Biology, physics, climate science, math, those are things that can give us actual truth. We can find consensus. Good old-fashioned scientific method, which I know I'm old-fashioned, but I still believe in it. We can arrive at consensus in science. Psychology and economics may or may not be valuable. I'll hold off on that judgment. But please, don't tell me, no one can tell me that they are on the same level with the hard sciences. They can't show hard evidence. They can't share that evidence with others in their field and reach consensus, which scientists routinely do. A psychologist will never be able to do that. An economist will never be able to do that. And in the field of psychology, oh my goodness, what we keep hearing now is how susceptible we are to fake news. As mentioned in the article, we have confirmation bias. We're all just crazy and irrational. I'm not necessarily buying this. I'm going to read what they have to say. I'm going to look for consensus. But too much of this falls into junk science. And really what I want you to take away from this segment, everyone is working under the same default position. Oh, this is the system we live in, and it's capitalism, and it's money, and you have to have a job, and you have to, all of these presuppositions. Talk about undergrad 101. That's the first thing you learn in the required philosophy class. Everybody, whatever your major, everybody has to take philosophy 101, where you learn basic logic. And any argument requires a premise, something that's agreed upon. And no one questions this premise of money and competition. No one questions the premise. It's the default premise, and all arguments flow from it. That's why the social sciences, as much as I love the social sciences, I value them. I use them all the time in my own arguments. But you better check the default position. Because if it is flawed, everything subsequent is flawed. If that is the foundation of what they are building, then it all crumbles. Well, I'm up against the clock. I'll remind you once again before we close for the day. Mark your calendars, September 20th, worldwide climate strike. Activities all that week, the 20th through the 27th. Friday the 20th is the big day. Call in sick, tell your boss, nope, I'm not coming in today because I'm going to be hitting the streets for the worldwide climate strike. Search that with your city and you'll find where to be, where to go. Time to join the fight for that. All right, there it is. Love you. This episode of The Log is available right now wherever you find your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, iHeart, YouTube, and the podcast source. Enter Charles Burcell Presents in the search window. Or best yet, go to charlesburcell.com. There you'll find this and all the other series in the podcast family. Follow, comment, and contact me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Theme music composed and performed by Peter Donalds. From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Burcell.